Gillian Kohn is a jazz vocalist based here in Charleston with a repertoire spanning decades. I talk one-on-one with Gillian about what she's working on right now for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Gillian Kohn, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a jazz vocalist based out of Charleston with a repertoire spanning decades, from the early jazz, the swing era, of course, to sultry Bossa Nova. Of course, you take listeners on a musical journey, that is, from time to time. So tell me, Gillian, what's new, what's now with your music?
Well, I've always been making music to start, and yes, I'm very passionate about those older songs, as you said, spanning from around about 1925 to 1965, give or take. I perform quite regularly on the Charleston market, a lot of hotels and what have you, but recently I've been doing a lot more private events and events out of town, which is a dream. And I think that I'm testament to the fact that in your early 40s, some things, I won't say, dreams can still come true. And next week, I'm very excited to perform for the first time in Florida. I will be on the road for 2 days, and that it's exciting to me. It's kind of a bucket list thing. So dreams can come true, and singing is a wonderful outlet for me to channel my emotions. I have quite a lot going on the home front with family members that live with disabilities. So it's a way for me to embrace those emotions and share those with people.
Absolutely. And I want to get back to the emotion part in just a second, Gillian. But what got you from obviously performing out in public to now actually performing for private events?
I think a lot of tenacity. I think in life, when you have a dream or you have goals, it's just working really hard, that nose to the grindstone, and never really giving up. I think I owned a restaurant actually in Charleston for nearly a decade, and I didn't sing for that entire time. And I did truly think that my singing ship or my performing ship had sailed. But I always still kept that dream alive. And I really was determined to not be just a lonely bathroom singer, or shower singer, as you would say. And, opportunities started presenting themselves. And I do believe that in life, success comes when opportunity and preparation meet. So I've always been a person that's been preparing, and I'm always one not afraid to embrace an opportunity and take a risk. So I think that's how I've gotten where I am.
Yeah. So what risks have you taken because of these opportunities that you prepared yourself for?
I think owning a business at 25 years old, a very successful business right before the economy collapsed in 2008, I think that really prepared me. It took me to a new level, if you will. One, it gave me and this was when I owned a restaurant, gave me such a kind of schooling, if you will, in the world of business. So it helped me take just what was natural talent and, studying and education and all of those things. It helped propel me and make me a more well-rounded business person. So taking that risk, which was huge, and that was one such risk. I think taking a risk at putting yourself out there every single day. 10 years ago, a decade ago, we didn't live in such a social world. And there is fear at every corner when it comes to marketing yourself or all of it, your fear of how people perceive you. And I think that, we all take risks. But I do think that fear is a dream killer. And it's a much more pressured world when we live in that realm of fear. It's being creative and being curious, and so there's risk every day for every single one of us. But I think that meeting those fears, asking for what I want, telling the universe what I want, and believing in it, believing in myself. And also, I think it takes risk and moxie, if you will, to know who you are, know what you want. Like, I know who I am as a performer. I know who I've always wanted to be. And it's not necessarily cool, quote unquote, but it is me. And I think that takes courage to stay the course, to not give up. And I apologize for all the things in the background. We are in the process of moving.
I remember you telling me that.
My family, we have moved in under a week. So I'm looking at my background and I'm like, oh, there's a really nice broom back there. I feel like Cinderella should be.
Oh, no worries at all. Let me break all of this down because I was writing most of the stuff when you were talking. But how do you separate Gillian Kohn, the performer, versus Gillian Kohn, the person?
Well, I say this all the time. I think that we all in life wear a lot of hats. And I quite literally wear a lot of hats. I wear big hats when I perform because not only is music or the art of performing just the talent itself, the singing, the acting, what have you, the interviewing like you're doing right now. It's stepping into a character. It's thinking about every single detail from a fashion styling sense to a confidence sense I always make it I make a distinct effort because surprisingly enough, even though I live and love to perform, I still experience tremendous stage fright. And so I literally, even though I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times now, and I'm so thankful to do it, I still have to have like a real pep talk with myself every time before I walk out of my car with like a 24-inch hat or a cherry on top of my head, because I do that because that's me. I have to have a pep talk and say, okay, Gillian, be confident. This is you. This is what you want. And meanwhile, I face that fear and I take that risk. Back to what we were saying.
Right.
So I don't think I necessarily separate the two. We all wear different hats. I'm a mother. I'm the wife to a man living with multiple sclerosis. I have a son with autism. I sell vintage jewelry. I think basically it's melding all of those people, all of those different roles into one. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a neighbor. I'm a friend. I think we can all do those well.
Oh, absolutely.
With honesty, honesty to ourselves. Yes. So there's really no separation, although I do feel like Judy Garland sometimes.
Yes, Judy Garland. She was amazing. Wizard of Oz. But how are you actually being honest with yourself with your music?
Well, I'm not really making concessions. I know sometimes when people come up to me and they say, well, will you sing this song, from the 90s? And maybe I know it, but I'm not going to sing it. It's not who I am. I don't feel comfort in that. I don't feel the same sense of joy. It doesn't resonate. So sometimes when in an industry that's so not precarious, but it's a difficult industry, the entertainment industry, there is a lot of rejection at every single door, at every turn rather. And sometimes it would be so much easier just to succumb and say, you know what, maybe I'll sell out. Maybe I'll just start singing the songs that everybody knows. One, to, support my family, to be busier per se. But, for over 6 years, I have stood the course. I've said, this is who I am. And I've only made concessions when those concessions have felt natural and purposeful for me. So that's more or less what I meant by being honest. I listen to my heart and I follow my heart. So when I start singing a song from 1927, even if no one in the room knows it, I hope that after they're done listening to it, they have felt a piece of me. And that's honesty.
Honesty. Which songs that you have actually obviously produced is a piece of you?
Well, I actually never, surprisingly enough, I've never written anything. I really live and dwell in the world of the Great American Songbook. So it might be something I do down the road. It just hasn't felt, I haven't felt compelled, rather, to do that. But in regards to songs that I sing, things that, showcase a piece of my heart, it's really difficult, when you perform, for instance, in a public, hotel setting or in a public arena. Oftentimes I have very long gigs and they're 3-4 hours. And so over the course of an event, I might sing 40 to 50 songs. And sometimes the performer in me gets so overwhelmed. I grew up wanting to be on Broadway, and I studied in New York as a young person at the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. So I learned very early on the whole methodology of, well, that might be redundant, method acting, if you will. So everything for me is very sense-driven, and it's very guttural. So sometimes after 3 hours of emoting, whether it's a lively, upbeat song like Putting on the Ritz to Crazy He Calls Me to Somewhere Over the Rainbow or Moon River or any of those songs, each song takes a piece of me. So they all make me vulnerable to some extent. Mm-hmm. And that's not even factoring in also the fear. Being a vocalist in particular is challenging in the fact that when it's pollen season, it's really hard to sing.
Yes.
You'll find me under like a steamer.
Yeah, like now.
I'll be like under a steamer, like steaming my face and just trying. Really a hard thing. So you also factor in all those, other fears and vulnerabilities.
I got you. Like it's pollen season right now. But let me go back, because obviously I want to talk to you about this. But what other music, Gillian, actually is sense-driven for you?
Repeat that again, if you don't mind. I just want to make better sense of that. So,
yes, ma'am.
You mean sensory-driven?
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, it's mostly being very in the moment when I am performing. So every element of the environment, the people, the audience, the temperature of the room, if I have a headache, if I'm feeling well, if I'm well rested, if I'm not, there's so many elements that contribute to that moment, that idea of being present. And then really, I think the biggest piece of it for me in regards to the music, one, it's also the connection I have with the musician that I'm performing with. How are we both kind of existing in the rhythm, existing in the melody, the harmonies. But for me, again, it also goes back to the lyrics. I feel like so often there's such a story told, and it's connecting my own personal feelings in that moment, but also recalling on a lot of feelings I've experienced beforehand. Let me give you for instance, like I said earlier, Crazy He Calls Me. I say I'll move the mountains. Regardless, I feel like a sense of the fight that I'm going through right now with my husband in regards to his health and battling a neurological beast like multiple sclerosis. And it's my feeling of being at moments at the point of breaking, succumbing to stress and fear and sadness and grief and all of those emotions, but it's forging through. So it's relating all of my personal experiences at any given point in my life, from the present to my earliest memory, and showcasing those, being open enough to share.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how do you put yourself out there musically without limiting yourself?
That's an interesting. I don't really think I'm not too strategic in that kind of framework. I believe in constant, gentle pressure in life, in dreams. I also realize, and this is something I've learned with my son and both of my sons and my husband and everything we've gone through. I realize that in life, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So sometimes if I'm not feeling like I want to push, I have to trust in myself that the dream is still there. It's not going anywhere. And I think that's really where that whole ideology of constant, gentle pressure comes to play. Being constant in wanting to achieve things, being gentle in my approach, gentle with myself, gentle to the people I work with, even when I'm frustrated. And then it is applying that pressure. It's never giving up. It's being laser focused and assertive to an extent.
Absolutely. How exactly are you creative and curious with your music?
Creative and curious. I think every day it's a creative experience. Every time I perform, whether that's, in my bathroom, as I said, in my shower, or if it is like, for instance, last night, in a room full of people in a very jazz age speakeasy bar. I'm creative at every moment. I'm curious always in the fact that I want to be better than I was. I want to be more honest than I was. I realize in this whole world of dreaming and performing, there's no such thing as perfection. And there are going to be days, there are going to be performances that aren't your best. But I do think that there's true beauty in not expecting perfection. Sometimes in a wrong note. I love that about jazz in particular. There's no such thing as a wrong note. It's just being open to sometimes delivering those. Or, as I said, I think it just all ties into vulnerability and a curiosity. I'm always curious. I want to know how to be better. I want to know everything about everything I put my heart into.
Yes. What are those other vulnerabilities when it comes to your music?
As I said earlier, vulnerabilities. Obviously, no one wants to go out on stage or go be in a situation where you could potentially fail catastrophically. And, sometimes I think it's very hard. And that's where this whole stage fright factors in. But then I get over it. I just trudge forth. So the vulnerability would be in that, and in failing catastrophically and being embarrassed. But as I said, I try to be gentle with myself. And I realize that, or really, I don't really realize, I just think that there is almost nothing so beautiful as any person, whether you're the most talented person in the world or whether you're not. There's nothing more beautiful than putting yourself out there and sharing that with people. That's what the whole life experience is about. It's about connecting.
Yes.
And I think that music is a platform. It's a language that no matter the real language we speak, whether that's English or French or German or Portuguese, anything, no matter the language, music is universal. We all feel it. We all connect with it. When my son was diagnosed with autism at 20 months old, we waited a number of years to hear him speak. And it was through music that I heard the makings of language. I recognized melodies. And that was what really gave me hope in regards to later on communicating through spoken language. But apologies, my little rescue pup in the back, Birdie, is in the room, and I think she's wanting to come out. And I may tell my son, Alistair, you may let Birdie out, because otherwise she's going to bark. You're going to get to meet my little rescue pup, Birdie. She's beautiful. So.
Beautiful. Well, yeah, and thank God in heaven for music as well. But when you put yourself out there, as far as your music, Gillian, how do the listeners actually relate to that?
I don't know. And unless they want to share it with me, I don't really know. I do know that quite a lot of people connect to me. Maybe it's my vulnerability, or when I speak after I sing a song. I don't know. I think music is always going to be that thing that's open to interpretation. Performing is open to interpretation. And I don't really honestly think, and this isn't to say that my objective when I perform isn't, it is always to make people happy, to give people an experience that they will always remember. And to also, for me personally, take people back in time, to conjure memories. Like, for instance, I just spoke about this the other day. I remember slow dancing to Nat King Cole with my grandfather when I was a child. And I remember that being really one of those turning points for me when it came to what was then pop music, but now that kind of Great American Songbook. So it's not really my business to worry so much about how everyone quite literally takes it. I just hope that they have a wonderful time. I also hope that when the performance is done, when the day is done, that I have given everything I possibly can to kind of live my truth, as I've said.
Today's music, which songs are, artists today actually relates to your particular, initiative that you're doing as far as performing for people?
I did see, and it's trite because she's just phenomenal. I did see Samara Joy recently. She won the Grammys, and I think that was such a fabulous turning point for this genre of music, in that whole ideology of bringing the old back to relevance, if you will. So yes, I think and said it was only trite because obviously I love her, and she's doing a very similar thing in regards to the music that she's selecting. In regards to newer musicians, trying to think, honestly, Quintin, you've kind of stumped me there. I don't listen to too many like newer musicians, contemporary musicians that are doing similar things to me that I enjoy. I love Joe Harrop out of London. But honestly speaking, I think about as contemporary as I really get. I love the Carpenters. I love all those kind of 60s and 70s singer-songwriters. I listen to quite a lot of those. I love Neil Young.
Oh, yes.
I love the Pretenders. So I don't know. There's really not too many musicians currently. Honestly speaking, music is not my work, because I love what I do, and it's never work when you love what you do.
Sure.
But it's my business.
Yeah.
And so when I'm listening to music, for the most part, it's not, again, work, but it kind of is work. I'm studying the music that I want to learn. I'm listening to a million different interpretations of the same song. And I think that's what's so amazing about the Great American Songbook and all of these standards, quote unquote, jazz standards. They've all been interpreted so many times, countless times, and each one is different. So it's kind of finding your own space within what we've all agreed upon is timeless.
How did you find and how did you find your space?
I think I find my space every time I sing a song. I sing it differently every single time. Recently, I've been really focusing a lot on vintage jewelry, but I've also, this year, it's kind of been a turning point for me musically and professionally. I think for a number of years, as I got back into performing when I was 35, I said yes to everything. Yes, I'll do that. Yep, I'll be there. And oftentimes I did things that perhaps I didn't really want to do, or I did them when I knew in my heart it wasn't moving me forward. So in the last year, I've made a real concerted effort to start saying no, if that makes sense. Because I think that you have to know your worth in this life. You have to know what your value is and what your talent, you just need to know what you're worth. And so I'm finding my own space in that. I'm finding that in saying no, I'm getting the opportunities that I really want. And because maybe I'm performing less, I'm having more fun when I do. So I find my space within each song. within each of those moments I was telling you about, all the circumstances, the environmental, the audience, I find my space in that. But I also find my space in this business by listening to my heart and sometimes saying no.
When you're listening to your heart, what is your heart telling you about music?
To be honest to it. I mean, like we go back to it, to be honest, to do my best, which I just equate one's best to being, again, honest. So I would say that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Gillian Kohn, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you very much, Mr. Washington. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise.